I'd like to welcome everyone back for the last session. We have had great speakers and we've had a great chat room. So I'm looking forward to talking about mental health courts right now. We have 4 judges that have experience dealing with mental health issues in their court. Our first judge is Judge Brent Carr, and he's been doing this almost as long as I have. He is the presiding judge of the Tarrant County Mental Health Court since 2003, the presiding judge of the Tarrant County Veteran Treatment Court since 2010, the presiding judge of the Tarrant County RISE program, sex trafficked women, since 2011, and the supervising judge of the Tarrant County Enhanced Mental Health Services docket since 2015. He has served as a consultant for numerous specialty courts around the state and was the inaugural chair of the Tarrant County Veterans Coalition. Our second judge is Judge Camile Debose. She presides over felony, criminal, civil, and family law dockets in Uvalde, Texas, and Real County. Prior to this, Judge Debose served 12 years as the first associate judge of the Child Protection Court of South Texas. She is also a former assistant district attorney for the 38th Judicial District and is a former Bexar County prosecutor, as well as a former regional attorney for the Department of Protective and Regulatory Services. Our next judge is Judge Yolanda Huff. She presides over Bexar County Court at Law Number 12, as well as the mental health docket. As a mother of 3, she worked while earning a law degree from St. Mary's School of Law. After earning her law degree in 1996, Judge Huff opened her sole practice in San Antonio. In her 21 years of practice, she has handled criminal, child protective service cases, and personal injury cases. Criminal law was perhaps the biggest part of her practice, and Judge Huff also handles thousands of felony cases, which taught her that justice must be tempered with mercy. Judge Grace Uzomba presides over Bexar County Court at Law Number 2, which handles criminal misdemeanor offenses. A veteran, she retired from the U.S. Army after 20 years of service and then attended St. Mary's University School of Law. Judge Uzomba has extensive experience with specialized court programs that focus on helping people who have substance abuse and addiction issues that cause them to come in conflict with the law. She has worked with the Veteran Treatment Court, the Drug Court, and the DWI Court. And she also serves as one of the attorneys. She served as one of the attorneys that rotated the civil commitment representation under the probate court. So we're very happy to be back now. Our first judge, and we want to thank you all for being here today and helping us. Our first judge we're going to talk to right now is Judge Camile Debose. Judge Debose, will you give us a general overview of your program and the diversionary tactics you practice in your county?
Sure, Judge. Hi. First, I want to thank you for having me. This conference has been fabulous. I didn't think you could top last year's, but you definitely have. So thanks to all the staff for the hard work that they did in putting this together. Our program is a felony post-conviction program. It began in September of 2014. Participants in our program enter post-plea or conviction, so they can either be accepted into the program at the time of a plea or sometime during their probationary term. The length of the program is 12 to 18 months, and our average length of participation is about 13 months.
When did you start this program?
We started in September of 2014. What happened was we had been contemplating a drug court because we have a really high, I'm sure we're not alone, percentage of defendants who have substance abuse issues. What happened was our local mental health authority director came and visited with me and told me that there were waiver 1115 grants available for mental health court. And since 90% of our defendants suffered from co-occurring disorders, and those funds were available. We definitely took advantage of that opportunity.
Did you write the grant, or did you have somebody on your staff write the grant?
I didn't have to do anything other than accept the money, which was awesome.
That's a wonderful way to start a program.
It was, yes. And what the grant did was fund, the grant only funded the mental health caseworker. It didn't fund any other positions. But what we did was we took that opportunity and ran with it and decided that we could do it on a shoestring, and basically all the other participants just carved out time in their schedules. You know, I was already the judge, the prosecutor was already the prosecutor, the defense attorney was already the defense attorney, probation was already the probation officer. So once we had that mental health component, we were good to go.
Who were your early partners? I mean, who did you partner with to put together this court?
Well, our early partners were our local mental health and MHDD office, as well as the director of mental health courts with our LMHA, which is Hill Country Mental Health and Developmental Disability Centers, our probation office, our district attorney's office, and our local defense bar.
Other than yourself, was there anyone who was a champion for this court and kind of pulled the other people in?
I would say the director for mental health courts with our LMHA. He definitely came in and offered valuable experience and enthusiasm. And so basically all I had to do was convene the meeting, and he provided the information, and we jumped off the diving board and into the pool. So
setting up any new program is difficult, and setting up this kind of court is difficult. What were your challenges at the beginning?
Well, our challenges were figuring out what we were doing, right? We had to come up with how the program was going to operate. At one point, where defendants want to be accepted into the program, we had to access training, develop a handbook, accurately track data, and also figure out what kind of data we wanted to be tracking, what was important to track.
Do the participants have to pay anything to be in the program, or it sounded like all the other partners contributed resources after you got the money from the state?
No, our participants do not have to pay any fees to be in the program other than their normal probationary fees, which they would be paying anyway.
And have you been able to raise any additional funds since you started the program, or how's that developed going forward?
Well, we were able to apply for and access a grant funding from JCMH, which gave us monies to apply for, have a computer program developed that we could input our data into and track our data. So that's been really helpful because we can all access it. We can all provide notes within that system and see what's going on and with the other components, like with the counselor, with the probation officer, as well as with the court. We also have had community partners who have donated things, incentives for the participants in the program.
Do people have to apply to be in your court? Is there a process of getting in?
There's a referral, and the referral is usually done either by the probation officer, the defense attorney, sometimes the prosecutor, and sometimes it comes from MHDD if they have someone that is in there receiving services and they know is also on probation. Then the MHDD caseworker screens that individual. If they meet the mental health diagnosis criteria, then they're brought to the team, and the team staffs the case as well before they're accepted.
Are there any disqualifiers for someone getting into this program?
Not really. We've taken all sorts of, the only disqualifier is if you're not eligible for probation. So okay. if you're eligible for felony probation, we will take you if you meet the qualifications.
Do you serve people with co-occurring diagnosis, IDD, that kind of thing?
We do, very few of our participants up to this point have had an IDD diagnosis. I think if it was severe, we would have difficulty with them in our particular program and the way it's set up. but we're certainly open to doing that. They all have co-occurring disorders. I can't think of one person on our caseload that doesn't have a substance abuse issue as well as a mental health issue.
How often do your participants come in contact with your court?
They come into court every other week in the first phase of the program. As they work their way through the program and they're promoted, of course, one of the rewards or incentives is that they come to court less. If there's a bump in the road, then they might have to come to court more. So we like to see them pretty frequently in the beginning.
What kind of community involvement do you have? Do you have supportive housing or workforce programs, those kind of things?
We're pretty fortunate in that we have a CCF, which was a Community Correctional Facility Substance Abuse Treatment Center here in Uvalde, which is a really valuable treatment option that we have available to us. We also have a junior college that has an adult GED program as well as vocational training options. And we're actually in the process of trying to set up meetings with them to open those services, not just to the persons that are in our court, but with all probationers who are interested in taking advantage of that. We also have a graduate of our program who started an NAAA program specific to our participants, which has been pretty successful. We work with our local housing authority. We have an area transit authority, a community health center. We work with local churches, the Open Table program. That is not the dining app, but it's actually a program where community members take on an individual and work with them once a week for a period of a year as a support to help them achieve goals that they've articulated that they're interested in achieving. We also have Team Uvalde, and we have also worked with our domestic violence programs here in town as well.
I think you said your program is 12 to 18 months. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is there any aftercare component once they have completed their probation, or does their probation run after the program?
The probation runs for around 3 months after the program. If everything seems to be going well and they continue to be stable, then at that time their probation is terminated. If they're on deferred, we have a defense attorney that files necessary motions for non-disclosure to assist that person in cleaning up their record.
Do you have any numbers, or do you measure recidivism in your court?
Yes, we do. We have, so far we've had 22 program participants in our program. We've had 4 defendants that were unable to complete the program and their probation was revoked. And we've had 1 graduate who re-entered the system. So we have an 82% success rate at this point.
Why did you choose a mental health court versus a drug court?
Well, because we had that funding available, and we had someone who was interested in helping us develop the court and do so successfully. We were really blessed in that aspect.
I know that in your rural area, a lot of times the rural areas believe that there are more resources in the big cities, and it's easier to start this kind of program in the big cities. What would be your recommendation for rural counties that want to start a court? Where do you go first?
My advice is to get with if you're not the judge, to get with your judge and convene a meeting and just start from there. Realistically, all the participants are already there. They're already doing the work within the court system. So it's a matter of segregating that docket and then accessing services to provide them to the defendants that are involved. I will tell you that ours operates on a shoestring, but it's the most rewarding work that I do as a judge right now. The other day, I had a young man knock on our door who came back to tell me he had graduated over a year ago, I think about a year and a half ago, just came back to tell me how he was doing, that he got a great job, and to thank us again for believing in him. And there's nothing better than that.
And that was my experience when I ran the family drug court. It was the most rewarding part of my judicial career.
Exactly.
Do you have to make any special accommodations for women, or are women treated exactly the same, or what do you do to perhaps support women through the program?
So women are treated the same. What has been my experience is most of the women in our program are young. They have multiple children. They lack education. And when you combine all of that together, they have more hurdles to overcome than the young men quite often, because job opportunities for young men are more abundant. They can go out and do manual labor, for which they are compensated oftentimes at a higher rate. Young women who are uneducated have very limited job opportunities available to them. They're usually waitressing or custodial work or something along those lines, which are minimum wage jobs. Oftentimes they're not given full-time employment. They're a little bit less than that, so they don't have benefits that accompany those jobs. They have to try and access child care, and you cannot support a family on minimum wage, as we all know. So that's something I've really been struggling with, is trying to provide opportunities for young women so that they can be successful.
Judge Debose, I've had the privilege of watching you throughout your entire career, and I'm incredibly proud of the work that you have done, and very incredibly proud of the work that you are doing today. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Judge Specia. You were a mentor and a godsend, and thank you for all that you do too.
Okay, our next judge is Judge Brent Carr. Let me see if we can get this camera straightened out here. Judge Carr is from Tarrant County, and he runs a number of pretrial diversion programs. The program we're going to be talking about today is 9 to 24 months, misdemeanors and low-level felonies. And tech people, I see my friend Camile Debose, but I don't see Judge Carr.
Well, I'm here.
Hello, Brent. How are you?
I hope somebody sees me.
Got you now. Okay. Camile's a lot prettier, but I'm glad you're here because you're one of the old warriors like me.
Okay.
Tell me, you've done a great deal of work in many different areas in Tarrant County. Give me an idea of kind of an overview of your programs and the diversion practices that are going on in your county.
Well, thank you. I first want to say today is the Marine Corps birthday. I am a Marine Corps veteran. Happy birthday, Marines. And tomorrow is Veterans Day, and I certainly want to wish well to all the veterans who are participating, families of veterans and friends of veterans. Well, I guess I want to start by saying I love all my children. I don't mean my real children, I mean my programs. And I know that when I walk out of the door for the last time and flip the switch, the thing that I'm going to have the most fond memories of is seeing real success. As a prosecutor, as a judge, just in the role of a judge. I mean, the only time I really saw people for a second time was if they showed up in court with a probation revocation, and it was, not a really pleasant time. So who doesn't like success? So what I get to see are these incredible people who have made a commitment to become involved in their own recovery. And we offer them a hand up with some resources. Of course, this is the justice system, so there are some compliance attributes, but I love success. It is motivating. You get to know these people as persons. You see their families, you see reunification, You see people who proudly stand up and said they haven't used drugs for 2+ years or alcohol. You see people who have got jobs that didn't think they'd ever have a job, and they've sustained them. And in all of my programs, the mental health, the veterans, the sexually exploited women, and certainly the one that Judge Rainey Webb is the actual presiding judge over, the basically street level mental health program. Mental illness thrives in all of these areas, and that really is a root cause that has to be addressed before we can make meaningful progress on a lot of other fronts. So there I was in 2002, late 2002, and you can tell I don't miss many free lunches. And I got invited to a free lunch at the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens that was being hosted by the Mental Health Association. And they had invited a team with a mental health court from Indianapolis, Indiana. It was the brainchild of the prosecutor. It was certainly based on the drug court model. This was at a time where there wasn't really a lot of national organizations or guidance or state associations or oversight or best practices. So basically the concept was you took a bunch of people that had similar needs and matched them up with resources that were relevant to those needs, and away you went. Well, we learned a lot of lessons along the way, and some of the lessons include you've got to be a little bit more careful in selecting who's participating in your program. I want to have a biggest front door as possible, but this mental health program, unlike Judge Debose program, this is a diversion program. So you're going to expect people that are lower on the criminal justice involvement to participate. The district attorney, this is a statutorily authorized program. The district attorney kind of has the last say about who comes in the front door, and that relationship has been golden for 17 years. We have learned that for the resources that we have in our area, we have selected a profile with broad. There's nobody in our program that is just low risk, low need, because again, we're very research driven, and the research is they don't really need a lot of programs. But so there's always some need level. You have to be able to respond to treatment. I heard a question earlier about fees. We do have a program fee, but sometimes we assess it, sometimes we don't, sometimes we forgive it. But I want to show you what I didn't have when I've started any program I ever started. I didn't have that. I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. I'm not going to say the money didn't come along quickly, because of course we started applying for grants, but I also want to amplify what Judge Shannon said earlier. The judge is a meeting convener, is a force, and that doesn't mean the judge is the only force. For the rest of you, you may have to pick a target. And there's a judge out there who knows a family that's struggling with mental illness, if not their own family, or a judge out there, if you're looking at a veterans court, who's in the military or has children in the military. So, you do have to recruit a good, solid person who can convene meetings. It becomes I've been through this process 4 times myself. And I've consulted with a number of other counties in the area on their programs. And basically, you identify the stakeholders. I would encourage communities to have a mapping out of what are your community resources.
Judge Carr.
Yes, sir.
You're doing what I want you to do, but why don't you kind of go back to the beginning after that meeting when you didn't have anything going, you didn't have any resources. Who did you partner with? And you didn't have 2 pennies. Who did you partner with, and how did you start building, kind of as a help to those people that are thinking about starting things from scratch?
Well, I again, after the luncheon was concluded, and those of us there thought it was such a great idea, Our local mental health authority has been trying to get a foot in the door at the Tarrant County Courthouse for decades. And this program kind of cracked the door open a little bit. So I partnered up with a long friend of mine, a fellow named Ramey Heddens. And we put together a list, and I invited we invited the fellow from Indianapolis back down to give us a 2-day tutorial on how he put his program together. Again, this was in now 2003. And we called the clerks, we called the sheriff, we called representatives of resource providers, we called probation department. And the first gift after the probation director at the time was so smitten. Now, we're this upcoming session, we're going to be in a little bit of a tight spot with finances. But at that time, he stepped up to the table and quickly offered us in short order the use of a supervision officer who is one of our 3 program members who are original equipment. The defense attorney would be the other one, but all of the staff has a long history. So we listened to the presentation. We basically put together a list of our resources. And again, I want to go back to where I left off a second ago. There's more resources out there than you might think. And you've just got to be diligent and willing to stick that shovel in the ground and turn the spade over and see what's under the dirt. Whether it's, there's statutory obligations. I'm not going to name any names, but there's statutory obligations that a number of state agencies have. They're supposed to be providing resource assistance and technical assistance. So let's get them to start providing resource and technical assistance. There is some funding at the state level. The first grant that we got was from Bureau of Justice Assistance. We have managed to fund our program for 17 years. We did have a few gaps in funding, so you need to start laying some groundwork with commissioners for when the funding runs out. If you got something in the pipeline, to get them to step up to the plate and cover the shortfall. But it's a collaborative process. I'm not going to say that I didn't play a significant role in establishing our mental health program, because I did. But it's kind of like putting a car together. Once you've got the thing assembled, then you're going to have to rely upon a lot of other technicians to make their contributions and support. And if I could say on that point, judges, despite what some of us think, we don't know everything about everything. And judges have to learn to trust specialists in other fields. You do have to, it's a mutual respect thing. I don't have the letters after my name to be making assessments or to be providing medications, but I know the people who do, and I have met with them several times. I have confidence in their assessment abilities, and whether it's the case management, the resources. Yes, we've had a resource or two over the years that kind of started to fall apart on us. So sometimes, you've got to kick someone off the island, because the target of your operation are the people who come into your program. And I have long learned that if you keep your gaze on what you're there to do, that everything else will fall in line, and you will be the person who assists in a great way in creating a great program.
Thank you, Judge Carr. Can you briefly say something about recidivism in your court? What's success look like?
All right. Well, we have had we've graduated about 560 people. Again, felonies and misdemeanors. This is a pre-adjudication, so they get a dismissal and an expunction. We've terminated about 60. We do measure our success. Of course, once records gets expunged, and that might be something we need to figure out how to do legislatively to at least track people for a couple of years after they've left the program. But while we were doing that, our rearrest rate is about 14%, which is below both the 1 year and the 2 year national average for these courts, and across any measure as supported in the data from the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. This is a marked reduction, and we're not talking about murder, rape, and robbery here. We're talking about oftentimes a lot of nuisance crimes. It can be domestic violence where a person with severe mental illness issues, assaults an elderly parent, but across all of those categories, the rearrest rate goes down substantially. And if I could make one last comment to Judge Webb's horn, they measured 1,000 of their participants, and in the 2 years prior to coming into their program, and a lot of them choose not to go in the program, but there were like over 2,000 arrests, and on the 2 years after going through their services, those arrests dropped to below 300 for the group. Now, that's not a scientific study. I'm not trying to represent it as a scientific study, but I mean, so last piece of advice I'll throw out, because I'm sure my time is about up, is I want to encourage everyone to use the case method. And I wish I could remember the woman who first heard this from, because I'd love to give her credit. And so all you lawyers are thinking about, well, that means we got to do research and do all this stare decisis stuff. No, it's an acronym. It stands for copy and steal everything. There's a lot of information out there now for you. You don't have to blaze a trail. And I know that I speak for every judge on this panel. If we need to come to you to help, or we can do a Zoom meeting or whatever, I know that myself and my staff are certainly willing to do that, because this is good work, and you'll be proud you got involved with it.
Thank you, Judge Carr. Appreciate it. And again, thank you for all the work that you're doing. Our next judge is Judge Yolanda Huff, who presides over Bexar County Court at Law number 12, as well as the mental health docket. Judge Huff, can you hear me?
I'm unmuting myself. There we go.
Hi, Judge Huff. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
And you and I have known each other for a long time, and I'm really proud of what you are doing in Bexar County. You're kind of the Pied Piper of specialty courts. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in your court, and also what you're doing to pull together the other specialty courts in Bexar County?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate this invite. I've been enjoying this the CLE for the last 2 days. So thank you guys. To the audience, hello, I am Judge Yolanda Huff of County Court 12 and the Mental Health Court. I took the bench on January 1 of 2019, and I immediately started making just major changes to the mental health court. I had experience. I must admit that I was a defense attorney for Judge Ernie Glenn's felony drug court several years ago. So I was a defense attorney there. So I knew about specialty courts. I'm really for specialty courts. I'm really excited about specialty courts. And when I took the bench, I have 2 dockets that I call. My main docket is on Mondays at 2:30. I call that the big docket. And I have a PTD, a pretrial diversion docket, that I call Thursday mornings. And what I did was I started just changing things. Like the court didn't have, even though the court had been up and running since 2007, here in Bexar County, I started changing things and adding like a lot of pro-social events, superstar boards, a fishbowl, little things that make a lot of difference to the participants that the specialty court didn't have. One of the big things that I took from, like you, for instance, Judge Specia and Judge Sakai, because I practiced before you guys in your specialty courts, that Judge Sakai doesn't wear a robe, he sits at a table with the participants. And I like that approach. So I got out the bench, I got out of my robe, and I sit at a table. And to me, it really seems that it opens up the participants to be really relaxed and sharing things with me. They appreciated it, and I appreciate it. One of the biggest changes I did was, well, it's really for all the specialty courts. Even though the specialty court had been up, the mental health court had been up and running since 2007, when I took the bench, so many people came to me with so many questions of how does this work? How do you get someone in? And you know, even it was judges, defense attorneys, participants. And so what I decided to do was start, I did a seminar called, and I entitled it, Understanding the Mental Health Court. And that was like within a few months of getting on the bench. And that was such a success. I got so many people, so many police officers, therapists, doctors, other judges, probation officers. It was just such a well-received thing. And I thought, like, how can I expand this? So I thought of this idea of like uniting all the specialty courts in Bexar County. There are 14 specialty courts here, everything from veteran, DWI, drug court, the family drug court, juvenile. I said, why don't we unite and address issues that affect the specialty courts? Every judge of every specialty court was on board with it. We launched our first meeting in September of 2019. And from there, we did a series of seminars to the community because it seemed to me as a new judge on the bench that it just wasn't enough people in the community that were knowing about the specialty courts and what the specialty courts did. And these are just awesome programs. There are options out there. And I wanted the community to know this. So we launched 5 seminars and we started back in this year in January. We had 4 of them, January, February, March, until the last one was going to be in April. We weren't able to do it because of COVID, but we pivoted to Zoom. We even got a larger audience. Now, the reaction from the community was just awesome. It was just people from all walks of life. I invited the mayor, the council people, everybody that I could think of to say, here, this is what we're doing down at the courthouse. Come see what the judicial system is doing in the way of restorative justice to lesser recidivism. And we launched I forgot one important thing, the resource book that the coalition formed. We must have passed out over 3,000 of those things. And I know I passed out a lot at last year's conference. And people were just so excited to learn that some veterans didn't know that there's veterans, that do hit veterans course. Even other judges were like, this is wonderful. I've never seen this before. And so it was just so well received because from my viewpoint, all these wonderful programs that we have at the courthouse, what good are they if the community doesn't know that what we're doing down here? And so one thing that Judge Uzomba had reminded me, she said, you're really doing the 10 key component of the 10 key components that all specialty treatment courts follow. Of course, my mental health court does too. And I'll read it out loud. It said, forging partnerships among drug courts, public agencies, and community-based organizations generates local support and enhances any of the treatment court programs' effectiveness. And I find that to be so true because as I was having these seminars throughout the community, so many people were coming up to me and asking, what can we do? How can we help? How can we further these programs? And I would say, write your congressman, tell them about what we're doing because all these programs are based on grants. My program is in Bexar County is the only one that's fully funded through commissioner courts, but all the other 13 programs are all based off of grants. And so the more people that know, the more community-based organizations know, it helps us all. It's good for our community.
Okay,
the community
Judge
loves
Huff,
knowing about these.
Judge Huff, talk a little bit how your court is funded. How many staff people are on your court paid for by Commissioner's Court?
Well, my budget is about, I would say maybe about a little over 500,000. I have 2 case managers. I have a court manager, 2 case managers. I have a liaison from the Center for Healthcare Services, which is our body where we send people to get evaluated in medicine. So I have a liaison. Then I have 2 case managers that manages the people with the medicine and mental health. I have substance abuse that we send people to the local agencies, Alpha House, Lifetime, Maya program. We have other entities in the city, say Crystal Counseling, that we send people to, that when people want to stay with their own private doctors and they're not going to be managed by the Center for Healthcare Services, we always have to partner them up with someone that's going to manage the mental health side. So we have several entities in the city that we partner up with. So these are the partners that we do and that our my budget pays for. And we do things like we give bus passes, we pay for UA testing. We do a lot of things because we're trying to even though other participants pay a $250 fee for the mental health court. And it's not something that we enforce because if they can't, they can't. And a lot of people that enter my court are homeless. They are, of course, the mental health illness. It precludes a lot of that money. And so we try to help them to the best of our ability in that.
Have you run into any resistance from, say, the district attorney's office or any of the other participants?
No, the district attorney's office, they're one of our partners. We of course have a defense attorney and an ADA on the team. And I've actually sat down with some of the, like, the higher ups in the AD's office, the DA's office, and trying to explain to them again what the purpose and what we do. Because it's still that lingering feeling I get that we're soft. These programs are soft on criminals. And I want to sit down, I want to say, look, you don't understand our programs, these specialty courts, these treatment courts are really intense. They're going to be way more intense than regular probation. And I've sat down, they were very receptive because the DA's office monitors who can join us through the PTD program. That application definitely, if they don't check off on it, that person is not getting into the PTD program.
Judge Huff, thank you so much for what you're doing, and thank you for carrying the torch for all the specialty courts in Bexar County.
I think that we put a link, and hopefully we put a link in the chat box to the resource book that everybody, that all the people out there, the attendees can look. And on my judges page, did we do that?
We'll make sure that that's in the link. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Our last speaker, and I'm trying not to cut too much into her time, is Judge Grace Uzomba. She presides over the Bexar County Court at Law No. 2, which handles criminal misdemeanor offenses. She's a veteran, and she went to law school after she retired from the military. So, Judge Uzomba, let me let you get up here. Okay.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Okay. Hi, Judge. How are you doing today?
I am doing just well. Again, I cannot go by and not echo the sentiments of all the other panelists and the majority of all the chatting that has been going on. Just thanking the organizers of this summit, as well as all the panelists that have contributed, but the staff members have done an outstanding job. Congratulations on the record number of people who have attendees, over 1,400. Congratulations. And they're getting them worthwhile. They're getting plenty of information for their time. It has been a worthwhile effort.
How do you utilize and does a court need to be knowledgeable about the 1622 process in misdemeanor courts?
Yes. One of the things that I became championed about is the Article 1622 in misdemeanor cases. And I think I can figure out my slides and I'll be able to go ahead and share them with you. Okay. Can you see the first slide?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The learning objectives that I had there is basically, I just wanted to share how one court, misdemeanor court, is handling it and how I'm dealing with the applying the Article 1622, the form. And then I wanted to explore about the importance of it. Of course, we know the importance of it. It has been well discussed throughout this summit, but you can never trumpet it enough how important it is to the community. I look forward to the day that all communities will be like the Dade County wraparound. It will be able to go ahead and do that wraparound services that they provide in Dade County. It is an extremely comprehensive program. So then also I just want to be able to say some of the best practices that I think of and unveil some concerns regarding the veracity of that form and then share some of the resources that I have employed. So one of the things that I have done with the 1622 is to be able to ensure that the defense attorneys and prosecutors all be able to, they know about it. When I first started my sharing of the information or pointing it out, a lot of defense attorneys didn't know about it. They didn't know that that form existed. And the prosecutors somewhat had an idea, but they did not reference it beyond maybe considering what they're going to offer or dismissing the case. So, and there's an issue, that has been pointed out with dismissing the case. If you dismiss the case, all you're going to do is to be able to maybe just continue the recidivism. They continue to pick up cases, and I do have an antidote for that. One of the attorneys that I had pointed it out to looked at it, then but went and reevaluated, actually discussing with their client, found there may be competency issues. Because so the 1622 form has really been very revealing. Now, if they are identified, I want to make sure from a judicial standpoint that they do receive treatment. That is taken into consideration, whether it's going to be private treatment or we refer them to sources. So this is basically information that I gathered from the last summit, a presentation that was made. Everybody should be familiar with this, with the person who presented all the information as far as the numbers and the statistics. So one of the best practices, I think, that it should be mandatory. When the Padilla case came out, that's Padilla versus Kentucky, they started requiring in our county that the attorneys, defense attorneys, demonstrate that they have had at least 1 hour or some training in immigration every year as part of their ability to stay current and stay on the wheel list. Well, I think that the same requirement should be implemented for the 1622 form, for Article 1622. I think that they should also be able to demonstrate some sort of exposure, whether it's CLE or this summit, of course, of learning about mental health issues, specialty courts, but learning about mental health issues expressly, so as to be able to effectively use the 1622 form. Then it should be made available to the defense attorneys through e-discovery. And now that was implemented or assisted by the Michael Morton Act and then of course technology, improvement in technology, to be able to automatically provide defense attorneys with e-discovery, the police reports, videos, and things of that nature without them having to request for it. So now one of the things I do is to make sure that it is part of their conversation. The 1622 form is part of, on the information there, is part of the conversation between the DAs and the defense attorneys and the judge, to the point where I will stop proceedings. I will ask about whether a 1622 form, if it's relevant to the case or pertinent to the case, has it been reviewed? Has it been considered? And I will ask this on record. And so I have taken it into consideration. And so this has other judges taken into consideration in the sentencing. There was, I believe, a judge shared with me that there was one that revealed a 1622 form, the information there revealed that somebody was homicidal. And so the judge wanted to be able to go ahead and give him a sufficient sentence, probation, to be able to go ahead and ensure that they were able to receive treatment. And now, now some of the things that I have been concerned about with, as far as when I say the veracity of the 1622, because I do wish for it to be respected and used appropriately, is basically who is authorized to prepare the form. And I think that should be clear on the form, so we know all the letters behind their names and that they are preparing the form accordingly. But if there are no findings and it's not applicable, and there are no recommendations, some of the questions that the community, being the legal community there, or legal triangle of defense attorney, prosecutor, and the judges, okay, why did you bother with this? I mean, there was absolutely nothing in there that was going to help, or it just left you wondering why the form was prepared for this particular person in the first place. Now, self-reporting versus diagnosis. I ran into a case where the person just self-reported and thought that it would applying to, again, the defendant's understanding of the questions. They thought that it applied to their family, applied to somebody else. And so they were reporting themselves. Or, it just, I don't know how you're going to be able to fix that, to be able to make sure that the defendant is actually cognizant that they're talking about themselves. And then how does the recommendation for treatment correlate or address that whatever diagnosis are? And then legibility. Yes, it's nice, it's typed, but when it's handwritten, people, your cursive, it just needs to be printed and made more legible. Okay, and then again, to be able to, legibility includes whereby in filling it out, we want to be able to make sure that the information that's being provided is not mixed in with the question, where you don't understand where the question stops and the answer begins.
Okay, Judge,
so,
we've got about 2 minutes to finish up, and I know you've got 2 slides. So
okay.
Do you want to go through the slides, or you want to just kind of give advice to the judges that are wanting to start these programs?
One of the things is just basically go ahead and pay attention to those 1622 forms, and see if there's any way that it will be giving you information. One of the things that has helped me, and I have been able to go ahead and put together, is in that doing compliance hearings, and that I have every single Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, I do have compliance hearings, both for probationers and for pretrial services. One of the things that helped me in doing that is I have been able to identify people who may have mental health issues, even though there's not a 1622 form. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is to go ahead and have compliance hearings, because I believe that it serves 75% of the gap. Specialty courts concentrate on high need, high risk, and that is a big bang for the money. But what I'm doing, I believe, services the rest of that's in the quadrant, where there's alternative tracks. In that I have the compliance hearings and able to identify people who may otherwise slip through the crack, that have not been identified or diagnosed as they go through the magistration system.
Judge, thank you very, very much. I know you are a relatively young judge, and you've done a great deal since you've gotten started. And I'm very proud of the work that you're doing in Bexar County. And I want to thank all of the judges. It's really unfair to only give you 15 minutes to try to explain your program. And I know that for the audience, y'all will all be available by email or chat to highlight the specifics of your court.